Hi everybody, this is my Oma. Her name is Trudi Sutton, and I am glad to have her on this interview today. So, Oma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Trudi Sutton, and I'm Brandy's Oma, which is German for grandma.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in a small town called Winnenden. And it was real small at the time. Now it's a city, and where everybody knew each other. You couldn't do anything, and everybody would know about it. And it was what we referred to a real cow town. Farms, and you would see the horses drawing wagons, and even cows were pulling wagons. And kind of real primitive, because you don't forget that's a long time ago. And so we lived in rent on the third floor.
We'll have to start that over again because the phone. We'll have to start part of that over again because the phone went off. So just start.
What phone?
Didn't you hear the beep?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's fine. I could edit this out, but.
Okay. So nothing much was going on there. We, growing up as kids, we played outside a lot. We made our own to do things. And I remember when at the railroad track, which wasn't far from where we lived, when they would unload coal, when they were all done, we would go down there to pick up all the little pieces in one bucket, and the other bucket would get all the dust, the coal dust. And then I would make coal. I would add water to the dust, and you can imagine the mess. And I would form briquettes, put them on a board, and let the sun dry them. So we would have that to burn in our stove, because, during the World War II, there wasn't really much that you could buy. So you had to kind of fend for yourself and come up with all kinds of stuff. But we had fun doing it.
So, you said you grew up during the Second World War. Would you like to speak a little bit more about your childhood experiences?
Well, we would, when the alarm would go off, the air raid, we would have to run down to the bomb shelter, for protection. And, but many times I would sneak back up. I wanted to see what was going on. And then you would see the German fighters go after the American planes that were coming to bomb us. So it was just like watching a football game, like, come and get him, go get him, go get him. And one time they shot one down, and we saw that plane go down. And so we all decided to go and look where it came down, and we found it. And I remember the pilot was still sitting in his seat. Of course, he was dead. And the whole plane smelled like peppermint chewing gum. And that peppermint chewing gum flavor, actually, that went with me all my life. Whenever I wanted to chew gum, it was peppermint. And so we saw that. And that was the first dead person I saw in my life, really, was that pilot. It was sad. It's sad. But, he was trying to bomb us, so I guess in our eyes he had it coming. And when the Americans came to town, everything went south really fast. We had to get out of our house because they wanted to move in. So we were on the street, and I remember it was sort of like a fall day. It was real chilly out, and it was drizzling a little bit, and we didn't know where to go. And then there's a factory not too far away, and the owner of that factory let it be known that everybody that had to leave their house could come to the factory and bunk there, like in the offices. And we could all make use of that kitchen that factory had. A big kitchen where they were cooking, for the workers and that. So that's what we did. That's how we managed to, live for quite some time. We were laying on straw mattresses that they brought us. But, it was better than not having a place to go. So...
As children, were you and your sister scared?
I was never scared. I don't know about my sister, but I wasn't scared.
Why not?
I just wasn't. I thought everybody lived like this. A child's world is very, very small. So when you grow up with all this bombing and all that, you think this is the way it's supposed to be, and that everybody lived like this.
How did you feel when you found out that not everybody lives like this?
Oh, I was already grown up by then when the war came to an end. And, it was already ended because the Americans were there. So we had a limited time to be outside. There was curfews, and there wasn't much to eat. So the Americans gave us a lot of stuff, too, that helped us, And whatever my mother needed, I would just sneak up to our place and take whatever I could find. And I never considered that stealing. As a matter of fact, I talked to a priest about that when I was already over here in the States, and Father Moroni. And I told him, I said, I never considered that stealing. I would just go there, and whatever they had in that room that used to be our living room, that's where they stored all their stuff. And I would just take it. And he said, well, no, that wasn't stealing, that was survival. So the only time that the Americans were really upset with me was they had all these cartons of cigarettes stacked on my mother's china cabinet. So I just decided to take 2 packs out of that one carton, I figured, for my papa. So when they realized there was cigarettes missing, they thought, of course, that I took them, and they were mad because I'm sure they didn't want me to smoke, and I wasn't smoking, But, I didn't understand English, but I could tell that this conversation had to do with the cigarettes and me taking them. Other than that, they never said anything when I would take stuff, and I am sure that they knew. But I don't know, I just always would try and get what my mom needed, And I was a forager, really. And I always felt really good when I would come home with stuff,
It was your stuff, right?
Oh, not all of it. Food items and that. That was their stuff. I would just take it.
Do you think they knowingly let you take it?
I'm sure they knew that I was taking stuff. They just didn't say anything. I was a kid.
At what point did you decide to head to America, and why?
Well, I met an American on my job. I worked at the U.S. exchange system. That's where the Americans that were stationed over there would go shopping. And I worked there. And I met what became later my husband. And well, so we were dating. What was not an easy thing, because in those days, German girls that were dating an American were not considered to be nice girls.
Why?
Because the Americans used to be our enemy, and now here the German girls are going out with them. It just wasn't a good thing. So whenever he would park his car in front of our house, and when he would leave, he had slashed tires, or the mirrors would be taken off on the side. There was always damage. And then when we would go to the police, they didn't do a damn thing.
Why not?
Because it was an American, and why they just didn't. So then, we got married over there too, in Germany. It just was not the German people didn't like to see a German girl, get together with an American. As time went by, that changed, But in the beginning, it wasn't nice.
So how was it like getting over here?
Well, we were supposed to come here together on a ship, and I had a baby by then. She was 9 months old, and so when we left Hamburg, he had to stay with the troops. They would not allow him to stay with me and the baby. So I was in a cabin with two women that were in the Navy. And they were so noisy, climbing up and down, to the bunk beds. No consideration that I had a baby that tried to get to sleep, So, and I had to deal with this for 9 days. It took 9 days on that ship to come here, the USS Butner. We run into a hurricane. It was awful. I mean, you couldn't stand straight unless you were holding on to something. I remember the crib was bouncing from one wall to the other. So that was not a pleasant trip, for sure. And where I had to sit to eat, breakfast and lunch and whatever, there was a black couple. And they were so nasty to me. You talk about discrimination. I was being discriminated against. And it was terrible. I even talked to the priest on that ship about it, because I was ready to jump overboard. And they just didn't like to have me sit there with them. But that was my assigned spot. So I came here to New York, and I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty. And my husband's father was there with his wife, to welcome us. And so we went, they took us to a place, I guess maybe it was a bar or something like that. highball. I didn't even know what a highball was. And my father-in-law told everybody that was there that I just came off the ship, from Germany. So then we drove to Cleveland and stayed with the in-laws for one or two nights. I think we slept on the floor. And then my sister-in-law and brother-in-law that lived in Wycliffe came and picked us up, and we stayed there until we found a place. It was hard, very hard. I was homesick, of course. And started life here. We bought secondhand furniture because we didn't have hardly any money. And did the best we could.
Did you experience a bit of a culture shock once you got to the States?
Well, yes, because everything's so different here compared to Germany. Europe in particular, people are more formal. Here, everybody calls each other by their first name. It's you, you, you. In German, when you say du, that means you have to be real good friends. Otherwise, you would say sie.
What's that?
Hochdeutsch. Well, instead of saying you, it's would you like to have a cup of coffee? You would say, wollen Sie instead of the you. It's just very formal. And the language is so different too. And over here, I remember the neighbors I had, Rose Werner. Her boy, Randy. Well, she would come over with that Randy, and that Randy would just open my refrigerator and take whatever. And you don't do that where I come from, So, I didn't like that at all. But it's just, you have to just go with the flow. But it's very, very different life.
Would you say, are you happy that you came to the States, or do you regret not staying in Germany with your family?
Well, if I had to do it over again, I would stay in Germany. Because you miss so much with your family. Because the family I married into really wasn't much of a family. Because, the in-laws, they were divorced. And, my sister-in-law, Betty, out in Wycliffe, she meant a lot to me. And she welcomed me. And you could tell it came from the heart. She was the only one from the whole family. And, you miss so much from your own family. So I would have just told my husband, let's just stay in Germany. What the heck? He didn't have anything really to come home to. But that's all water down the dam now, And I've been here over 60 years now. I was 24 when I came. And I'm 85 now. So that's a long time.
At times, do you find yourself thinking in German?
Yeah.
Would you say it's most of the time?
No, I used to. I don't know when that kind of went away,
Is there anything else that you would like to share about your life?
Well, it was an interesting life, for sure. And it was hard. And it made me a different person. I guess life forms you. Life itself, what happens, ups and downs, that kind of molds you into a person, just like a stone that's in a river that gets shaped, from the water. That's what life does to a human being. And so that's why I am the way I am, I guess. Life wasn't really easy for me here. It was basically tough. I was never spoiled. But the nicest time I had here was when my kids were growing up. That was my favorite time.
Why?
Because I just loved it. And I loved when there was snow days. I loved it when they had to stay home. I just loved my kids to be around me all the time, And I'd like to surprise them. It's like when I would make a pot of sauce and meatballs, and they could smell it when they got off the bus. They could smell it outside. And then there was one friend, my Bobby had this friend, his name was Norman. He would like to come too and have spaghetti. And that was fine. And Bobby Hertog, that was another one of my son Bobby's friends. He would like to come and eat, So it was always fun with the kids, making stuff. On Valentine's Day, I would make them pancakes shaped like a heart. And I'd pack real nice lunches for them. I hated really packing lunches, but I packed them the nicest lunches. I saved those little jars from baby food, and I would cook pudding, put it in for dessert, and I cut up carrots. I just always tried to make a special lunch treat for them, take to school. And I would bake for the whole class on special occasions. Valentine's Day, I would make hearts. On Easter, I would make Easter bunny. St. Patrick's Day, I would make clover cookies, green, frost them. Nowadays, I guess you can't do that because parents don't want you to bake stuff and take it. They would rather you buy it from the store. But when my kids grew up, it was different, So, and then I remember one time, that's when they were in the 6th grade, when they asked me to come and talk about how Christmas was in Germany. And I did.
What's it like?
Well, it's just different. When around Christmas time, I never really cared to go and walk into town because every corner you came across a bildsmette, which was like a Santa Claus, except they were not dressed the way they dress them here. It was dressed like it more in khaki color or brown, and he would have a sack. He would have those shoots, to smack you with. And one would always come to our house and he knew everything you ever did, and you had to recite something, a poem, or sometimes we had to sing something. And we always wondered, how the heck does he know, how you did in school and this and that. until we were older, then we knew why, because it was a neighbor woman that did play Santa.
So did your parents tell them?
Of course. Yeah. So, and Christmas, you didn't see a tree until Christmas Eve. The living room door was closed and we could not go in there. So we would wait and wait and wait. And then, when it was already evening, we would hear that little bell. And then the door would open. And there was the tree all lit up with real candles. And our dollhouse was under the tree with the kitchen and everything. And on the table there were always 4 plates. And on each plate there would be some goodies. Some cookies, maybe a banana, maybe a chocolate bar, you know. And and then my sister and I, we would play something on the piano that we had practiced as a gift to our parents. And I would play with my dollhouse, especially with the kitchen. I cooked right away. I loved to cook stuff, even as a kid. And so that was Christmas Eve.
What would you say the best moment of your entire life was?
The best moment? I don't know. I don't know if I had the best moment. I had a worse one that I know, but I really, when my kids were born, yeah, when my first one was born, it was like, oh my God, you know, yeah, I'm a mother and I don't know how you do it, you know, but it just comes naturally, right? So, yeah, those were the best moments when my kids were born.
Is there anything else that you want to say?
Well, there is not much else to say, really. I mean, this life I had here was a full life, you know. I worked, I volunteered. So, I mean, I did a lot, really. And I was able to do a lot. That's all I know.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your very interesting life with me. And I'm sure everybody who watches this will gain some valuable insight and enjoyment in your stories. So thank you.
You're welcome.